Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Yes, sir. I am back like I never left. Man, work, 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 work. See me if you work, 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 work. Yeah, man. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning into the live show. Well, it is currently 3:12 a.m. and today's date is the 18th of December 2024. Yes, sir. I am back. And of course, the legend, the OG, the 45th, now the 47th, is suing somebody else. Another news channel. And it's like, yo, you gonna have to pay up. Pay up. Mm-hmm. Pay up now. You're gonna have to pay up. You are going to have to pay up. Okay, if you defame my name, if you defame whatever I stand for, you're gonna have to pay up. All right, so that's what's going on right here. And it's about to be spicy tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in one more time. Let's see what's going on in Big Dog's news. Yo, man, let's have a good time tonight. All right, so Trump sues Iowa newspaper over poll that showed him losing. Listen to CNN, man. CNN always got something to say. Don't forget that.
Donald Trump is now suing another media outlet. This time it's the Des Moines Register, that's the newspaper in Iowa, over that pre-election poll. Remember the one just before the election that showed Trump losing the state to Kamala Harris by a very wide margin. Trump, of course, won Iowa by a very wide margin, more than 13 points. The lawsuit is accusing the Des Moines Register's longtime pollster and the paper itself of brazen election interference. Those are the words they use in the filing. And this is Trump's latest media target in a long list. Just to look at who he's sued just over the past 2 years alone. And of course, there was the settlement where he got $16 million from ABC News this week, which I'm going to ask about in a moment.
Pay
I want to
up.
start, though, with Harvard
Pay
constitutional law
up,
professor
man.
Lawrence Tribe, nation's preeminent legal expert on the First Amendment. Tribe, nation's preeminent, which I'm going to ask about in a moment.
Oh my God. Y'all gonna have to pay up, okay? Trump's media lawsuit, journalist Bob Woodward, happened in January 2023. Simon and Schuster or whatever, January 2023. The Washington Post, May 2023. ABC, April 2024. Of course, now he's getting $16 million from ABC. Shout out to whoever litigated that move. That was straight up payday for OG Trump. CBS, October 2024. Hey, CBS, you're gonna have to pay up, man.
I want to start, though, with Harvard constitutional law professor Lawrence Tribe, nation's preeminent legal expert on the First Amendment, on this issue of where we are, Professor Tribe, with suing the Des Moines Register and that pollster. Is there any legal basis for Trump to do this, to sue a pollster
Yes.
and the paper because it showed him losing and was wrong?
So yeah, because you're lying.
No, there's no legal basis at all.
There
He
is.
claims it was election interference, but if anything, when Ann Seltzer, who is a terrific pollster, mistakenly said that it looked like Harris was pulling ahead, and that's what her polls showed. If anything, that hurt Harris because it may have led people to be overconfident. It certainly didn't hurt Trump in any way. There's no basis for a lawsuit.
Oh, really?
There are no damages. There's certainly no false
for real?
statement of fact. But that's not the point. The point in the history that you showed with the various suits, including the settlement by ABC for $16 million with a very weak defamation suit that Trump had brought, that whole history shows that the dominoes keep falling. That is, one newspaper or media outlet after another folds in anticipation of being pressed to the wall by a limit.
No, he's not pressing you, man. He's not pressing you. Y'all pressed him for what? For years. You've been pressing this man for years, trying to, you know, belittle him, try to drag him his name through the mud. Now is retaliating it's just suing you. Okay, it's just suing you. Like the way you speak BS about him, yeah, it's just suing you. And you deserve to be sued.
Limitless budget that Donald Trump has, backed by all of his financial backers, he can crush people. And
Oh, now
his
he can
threat
crush.
to do
Oh my God. Now they're saying he can crush people. Oh, really? He can crush people? Yo, we're suing this. Man, you can never make this up. You guys were suing this guy, and now you're saying he can crush people? You've been saying BS about him for years since he decided to run for the presidential election of the United States. Now you're saying he can crush people. Oh, you didn't know that? Well, you gonna know.
that has become his mode of lawfare. And the danger is to our whole system. People lose faith in polls, they lose faith in the newspapers, they lose faith in the media.
Yeah.
The whole system crumbles.
So let me ask you, because as you point out, this is not about the Des Moines Register, right? It's much bigger than that. And in fact, Trump has made very clear his view of much of the media. Just listen to some of the threats that he's put out there, Professor.
I think CBS should lose its license, but I think ABC should lose its license also because of what they've done. We sued them yesterday for a lot of money. We sued them. And I sued them, and we call it election interference fraud. New York Times is the enemy, and Washington Post is the enemy of the people, too.
All right, so that's just some of it, though. I mean, just on Thursday, Professor, he said this.
CNN is
We
about
had
to
a
get
great
the boot
first
suit.
term, despite a lot of turmoil caused unnecessarily. But the media's tamed down a little bit. They're liking us much better now, I think. If they don't, we'll have to just take them on again, and we don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
How dangerous is rhetoric like that in reality?
Man, please.
Incredibly dangerous. It's not just rhetoric. When he says we've tamed the media, what he's really saying is that we call them the enemy of the people, and then we threaten to crush them financially
please.
and otherwise. And especially when media outlets are owned by very wealthy corporations or individuals who have a multitude of interests. Jeff Bezos owning all kinds of things in addition to the Washington Post.
Yeah.
Example of that kind. When that happens, then people who want to, go along with those in power are tempted to squelch the media outlets, and freedom
for
of
real?
the press
Yeah.
is undermined, and that's essential to democracy.
So,
So
Professor,
that
yeah,
autocrats lead this way.
I just wanted to ask you about the ABC case specifically, because they settled that defamation case. They're donating $15 million to his presidential campaign and paying his legal
nah.
fees for another $1 million. So $16 million. Also, a public apology coming from ABC.
Yeah,
I'm
they better
curious, Professor
apologize.
Tribe, what you think the significance of that precedent is that ABC chose to do that.
Well, it was a case that ABC was destined to win, because the only thing that Trump could say is that George Stephanopoulos used the word rape somewhat loosely. He used it the same way the judge who had presided over E. Jean Carroll's lawsuit used it. The technical definition of rape is not what was at issue. What was at issue is whether there was deliberate falsehood on the part of ABC and George Stephanopoulos. And they were not able to prove that in any way, shape, or form. They couldn't even prove the damages. What kind of damage to his reputation, given everything that he bragged about what he does to women? There was no damage to his reputation. So it was a weak lawsuit. He was destined to lose it. But rather than basically be on the wrong side of Donald Trump, Disney, the company that owned ABC, obviously put pressure on ABC to cave. And that sets a terrible precedent, because it means that whenever a media outlet is part of a conglomerate, the business interests of the owner can induce that media outlet to silence itself. And when that happens, those who would criticize the leader of government, those who would criticize the president or the government,
Yeah.
are basically chilled. And that is the beginning of the end of democracy.
Professor Tribe, I appreciate your
Bunch
time
of
as
cap.
always. Thank you, sir.
Bunch of cap. Bunch of cap. Yeah, bunch of cap. Yeah, bunch of cap, man. We ain't gonna take that. Bunch of cap. We've heard this for what, 8 years? Yeah, we ain't gonna go for this no more. Yeah, bunch of cap, man. Anyway, we're not gonna waste time on that bunch of cap. We're gonna move on. Canada is going wild. Okay, because Trump keeps calling Canada a state. Trump keeps calling Justin Trudeau a governor. Man, this Trump, man. D47, he has no chill. Canada's going bunkers right now. Check it out.
Tonight, Donald Trump throwing Canada into chaos after calling Canada a state and calling its prime minister Governor Justin Trudeau.
Oh, God.
Comes as Trump's nemesis in Canada. The country's deputy prime minister, Chrystia Freeland, who's also its finance minister, is
man.
gone. She abruptly resigned after clashing with Prime Minister Trudeau, saying
Oh,
he
yeah.
is not doing enough to stand up to Trump and Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on every single good that comes into.
What can he do? He cannot do. Man, look, everybody has a loud mouth until you get in the ring. Everybody, like Mike Tyson always says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. That's what's going on with Justin Trudeau right now. He was having a loud mouth, thinking the OG wasn't going to win. Now he's won. You are in the ring with the 45th, now the 47th president-elect. You ain't finna do nothing. You can't do nothing. You're going to have to listen or be the 51st state of the United States. And you're going to be Governor Justin Trudeau.
The United States from Canada. Trump calls her toxic. But there is another top Canadian official now taking Trump on tonight, Ontario Premier Doug Ford. He is calling for his country to use every tool in our toolbox, a direct quote, including cutting off Canadian energy to the United States if Trump follows through with his threat. Warning, quote, the Americans are going to feel the pain as well. Premier Ford is out front with me tonight. And Premier, I appreciate your time. And I want to just start here with your proposal itself. What exactly does cutting off Canadian energy to the United States look like?
Well, first of all, Aaron, thanks for having me on. You know, that's the last thing I want to do. I want to sell more electricity, more power to our U.S. friends and closest allies.
Bro,
in the
you
world.
can't do that.
But
You know
that's a
you
tool
ain't
that
doing
we
that.
have in our toolbox. We power over 1.5 million homes in Michigan and counties in Michigan and New York State and Wisconsin. That's the last thing I want to do. I want to sell more energy to the U.S. I want to sell more critical minerals to the U.S. Again, we're the closest trading partner, closest allies. We do $1.3 trillion of two-way trade. That's more than Japan, China, UK, and France combined. I just feel we aren't the enemy. The big problem, in my opinion, is China. Cheap Chinese products going through Mexico. They're slapping a made in Mexico sticker on, shipping it up through the US and Canada and costing American and Canadian jobs.
So, when you talk about that Americans will feel the pain if you have to go through with this, you specifically threatened to turn off the lights to 1.5 million Americans. And I say that just because if you're specifically talking about electricity coming into the U.S. from Canada, that only makes up about 1% of annual U.S. electricity consumption. That's according to the EIA here in the U.S. But, Premier, when it comes to crude oil, if you go bigger, you're looking at Canadian exports to the U.S., 60% of America's total oil imports come from Canada. So do you want to go bigger in this? If these tariffs are going to go through, should you reciprocate with tariffs, not just on electricity, but on crude oil itself?
Well, we ship down.
Yo, this is the wildest BS I have ever seen. This lady right here is an American journalist that works for CNN. And she's here suggesting to this guy that is from Canada, she's telling him, maybe you should also do what you're planning to do on electricity, do it on oil too. She's telling him how to attack. I mean, you can never make this up, guys. Listen to this BS.
not just on electricity, but on
Uh,
going to go through. Should you reciprocate with tariffs, not just on electricity, but on crude oil itself?
hey,
Well, we ship down 4.3 million barrels every single day. If there was a tariff on
What?
that would increase gas
I
by
think she's a
$1
Canadian.
gallon. That
She
wouldn't
must
go
be a
over very
Canadian.
well.
Because
And,
God,
both
dang.
sides of the border are going to feel the pain. We rely on each other. Ontario is a big auto province, and I want to work with the U.S. I love the American people. I spent 20 years of my life there in Chicago, in our Chicago
Woodley.
facility in New Jersey. I love Americans. I love the
Stop
U.S.
the cat.
and we're so
Stop
much
the cat,
stronger
bro.
together. Let's build Fort AmCan and let's onshore these products from China and create more American and Canadian jobs.
So can I just ask you, taking a step back, and I know some of the stuff Trump had posted, you referred again to Canada as a state. He referred again to Prime Minister Trudeau as a governor. It's not the first time. He had posted that AI-generated image of himself standing next to the Canadian flag with the
Legend.
caption, "Oh, Canada." And that was after Prime Minister Trudeau flew down to Mar-a-Lago unannounced to meet with Trump about his tariff threat, where Trump joked that Canada could become the 51st state. So can we just take a step back? I know in some of this he's sort of making a joke, but he's doing it again and again and again. And obviously, it is demeaning. I mean, how do you respond to that he keeps referring to Canada as a state
He can't
and
do
the
it,
leader of
nothing.
your country as a governor?
Well, it's up to premiers like myself, which is equivalent to governors down in the U.S.
Yep.
It's our job to go down and inform Americans. We have a large ad campaign going on in the U.S. to inform them that we are their number one trading partner, number one ally in the entire world. The supply chains are so integrated. We're so much stronger together. The only people that win, Aaron, is China. Americans lose, Canadians lose, and that's the problem. And Mexico has to make a decision. You're either with Beijing or you're with Washington. I'll tell you what Canadians are with. They're with Washington.
So do you take Trump seriously when
Oh,
he
of course.
mocks Canada, or do you think that that's just, his negotiating tactic?
He has a sense of humor, but I'm more concerned about the trade, making sure that we secure trade on both sides of the border.
You better be ready.
And this is pretty simple. The president has asked to secure our border. I agree with him 1,000%. We need to secure our border. We're going to secure our border. We have to meet our 2% commitment to NATO, and we're going to do both. So those are two asks that we're going to get done. I've been saying it well before President Trump was elected that we have to meet the 2%. We have to secure our borders. And then we move forward and sit down and have a discussion. I'd love to sit down with the president, businessman to businessman, and have a conversation with them because we are so much stronger together.
All right. Well, Premier Ford, I appreciate your time tonight, and thank
That lady right there, she's definitely, I think she's a Canadian. Because, God, what are you doing? You're supposed to be supporting the United States. But, I mean, it looks like she's a Canadian right now. Well, if Canada is the 51st state, then, you could be from Canada. And your governor could be Justin Trudeau. This guy is saying that they have to meet their 2% NATO whatever budget, and also they have to protect the border. Common sense. This is what the legend is asking for. If you can't do it, then you're going to have to be a state. Yeah, you're going to be a state, man. And she's going to be from Canada. What's going on with the
Federal government
drones,
is
man?
under increasing pressure to share more information with the public about possible suspicious drone activity over New Jersey and parts of the East Coast. Videos of what appear to be unidentified aircraft began going viral last month. The House Intelligence Committee had a classified briefing about this all today. This is what Ranking Member Congressman Jim Hines told Jake Tapper just after.
And I asked probably in 12 different ways, is any of this federal government operations? There's a lot of rumor out there that this is radiation sniffing or chemical sniffing. This is not a federal government operation. We're very, very confident of that. Most of them turn out to be regular aircraft. Yes, some drones, recreational, commercial. People are seeing stars. There's again, no indication that there's any illegal activity or any particular danger or malign activity.
All right, I'm joined now by New Jersey Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill. The Congresswoman is a former Navy helicopter commander and out with her own 5-part plan of action to
They keep saying that there's no point to get worried. There's no cause for alarm, but don't know what it is. So the government is saying, don't worry about it. But then the government is saying, we don't yet know what it is. God, please, God, dear Jesus, save us. Because these people can't save us.
improve communication with the public about drone activity. Congresswoman, you heard your tri-state colleague, Congressman Himes, say, not nefarious, not a government operation. Do you share his confidence on those 2 points?
So I spoke to Himes after his briefing. I also had a briefing from the White House today. And I think what we know today is that this was going on for really a month until it seemed as if we started to get some responses. There still doesn't appear to be the coordination I would like to see between all of the government agencies. Even at the White House briefing, myself and Pat Ryan, 2 military veterans, were just sort of asking questions, and I don't think either one of us felt like even the White House briefer had the information that we had from being on the ground and speaking to our military bases. But it does appear as if sensitive equipment is finally on the ground after, as I said, almost a month to get it there. We are better tracking the drones. The information that the FBI has received, they are now tracking carefully all of the reports and tracking those reports. They have not identified any threats at this time. But again, we have still quite a bit of work to do as we are behind the power curve here. So that's what we know at this point. And I think we can feel very good about that to date. But I think what we don't feel good about, what I don't feel good about, is a sense that this took too long, that communication still, and I'm still hearing this on the ground from law enforcement, communications are still not flowing appropriately to everyone who needs to understand where the investigations are leading and then get information to the public about what is being found. And then we need a plan going forward. We really need to have a better operation going forward. What we've seen here at this time is we have like 1980s era policies to combat a current threat, and that's not acceptable.
Well, but there is a difference, you agree, between bad communications and then bad stuff in the sky, correct? And you're more confident it's bad communications right now than there's bad stuff in the sky.
Well, I think I feel better about that right now. I feel like we are moving towards that at this time. I'm still, though, not convinced that very nimbly, very quickly on the ground so that the FBI can track this. And at this point, I do feel better about that. I feel like we have the equipment on the ground. We are tracking it. We are not finding the threats that people are worried about. Yet, I still feel as if we still have to have more information. I would like more confidence in what is being communicated to me is all of the information that the agencies have, that they are collating it all together, and an understanding of if anything remains outstanding that we're concerned about.
And this is all part of the plan that you proposed, yes?
Exactly. That is correct. This going forward has to work better. It can't take a month for people to get the equipment on the ground we need. It can't take a month for people in government to start accepting that people are seeing things in the air and responding to just that.
You've seen a lot of stuff in the air. It was part of your job for a long time. So when you look up, are you willing to accept what John Kirby has told us, what others have told us, that a lot of what people are seeing?
So this is the greatest nation in the world, the strongest nation in the world, the smartest nation in the world, the nation with the most millionaires, the city that harbors the most millionaires on earth, New York. So with all those billions and trillions of dollars that the United States reserves, we have the most lethal military, but we don't know what's in the sky. So our government is telling us that we don't know what's in the sky. No, we don't know. So we don't have control of our own airspace. Yeah, that's BS.
are planes and helicopters. Not all, but a lot of what people are seeing.
Sure. I think that's true. I think most people in New Jersey think that's true. A lot of what is being seen, we have a very heavily trafficked state. We have major international airports. We have smaller airports. We have helicopters going overhead. Look, I think we are all willing to accept that the majority of air traffic over the skies in New Jersey at night are actual commercial air, is actually commercial air traffic. And then I also think that we know there are a lot of hobby drones. My kids have received drones for Christmas a couple of years ago. But we want to know those larger scale drones. Is there any evidence of that? Is it simply law enforcement now patrolling the skies, which they are doing with their own equipment? Or is there something else out there? And I think at this point, with the equipment that we now finally have on the ground in New Jersey, we are starting to track what's going on in the sky, and we are not seeing any threats. We are not seeing any signs of any threats. I feel very good about where we are headed. I still want to see better communication and be assured that all of the government agencies have come together, have responded to this, and understand what's going on and understand what's been happening in our skies over the past month.
And I assume you were not pointing the finger at your own kids here, even though they, like so many others now, have drones that they're flying at all hours.
They have been grounded. Right now, as we are going through this and trying to determine this, my kids' drones have been grounded.
Congressman Mikey Sherrill, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Please.
So we sent CNN aviation correspondent Pete Muntean to do his own investigation into what's happening in the skies over New Jersey. Pete is a pilot with extensive expertise in identifying aircraft. This is what he found.
We are on the lookout for drones. With drones, where fears first took off, New Jersey. Ocean County Sheriff Sergeant Kevin Fennessy is one of about a dozen drone officers responding to calls and now tracking flights from inside this major crimes command center, now turned into a drone war room.
It's wild, the amount of air traffic over New Jersey, and especially over Ocean County.
The sergeant says, sure, many of the calls the department gets are actually airplanes, helicopters, medevacs, planets, even stars. But they have seen things they just cannot explain. A sheriff's lookout drone tethered to the ground captured this video.
We had something coming at us, and as it's coming at us, it stops, it does like a 180 in the air and then drives away, and then comes back and does like a giant U around us. So that's not normal for aircraft.
So this is really happening?
We think so. It's definitely something that whatever we're seeing, we can't figure out what it is.
The federal government reiterated Tuesday that the vast majority of purported drone sightings are in fact airplanes or drones flying legally with no threat to public safety. But don't say that to the folks on the not shy to tell me about what they have seen.
I think it's drones. Too many people have seen them to it not be real.
I haven't seen it. I do think it's legitimate, but I don't believe that nobody knows where they're coming from.
I haven't seen any legitimate drone sightings in this current flap around New Jersey.
Science writer and conspiracy expert Mick West investigates possible drone sightings and says that you can too.
If you get the details, the date, the time, and the location, you can actually look up what was in the sky at that point and look at what direction they were looking in, and you can see that it was actually just a plane.
We're on the boardwalk, the sun is set, and the sky has really come alive. You can see almost why folks are reporting so many drone sightings. Off in the distance over the Atlantic Ocean there, I can see several planes. I'm corroborating here with the same app that they use over in the command center. This is called ADS-B Exchange, showing within about a 20-mile view planes broadcasting their position live. There's an Atlas Air cargo flight that just left not too far away from here, going out flight that's coming in over the Atlantic, turning north to go into JFK, and then another really bright light above those two. That is Jupiter. But it's the things that cannot be explained so easily that have folks here really concerned. Deputies like Kevin Fennessy hope the truth is still out there.
We're not drone hunters. We're just trying to see if we can figure out what's going on, where they're coming from, and try to put this to bed.
The Pentagon is deploying drone systems to 2 military bases here in New Jersey. Naval Weapons Station Earl is the closest, only about 25 miles away from where I'm standing. The goal is to detect and identify drones, not shoot them down. The idea is to jam the signal between the controller and the drone itself in hopes that the drone will essentially land on its own. John.
Piedmontine.
Hey, this is a joke. This right here is a joke. Shout out to Joshua. Joshua, I think this is a joke. Like you said, this is incompetence right here. What do you mean by Pentagon is deploying drones to come see what's going on? So, we don't know what's going on. First things first, I believe, this is my opinion, okay? It's not the facts, the truth, or whatever. I believe the United States government knows what's up and they don't want to tell the people, and that's it. Luigi.
Good afternoon. I'm Alvin Bragg, Manhattan District Attorney. I'm honored and privileged to be joined by Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch. First and foremost, I want to extend my deepest condolences to Mr. Thompson's loved ones and colleagues. His family deserves our respect as they continue to grieve. Our work will never be able to undo the fact that a life was lost. We are here to announce that Luigi Mangione, the defendant, is charged with 1 count of murder in the first degree and 2 counts of murder in the second degree, including 1 count of murder in the second degree as an act of terrorism for the brazen, targeted, and premeditated shooting of Brian Thompson, who, as you know, was the CEO of United Healthcare. This case was made possible by the collaborative efforts of the phenomenal public servants you see before you today, and so many others who are not here. I'm honored to lead the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and privileged to serve alongside Assistant District Attorneys Joel Seidman, Kristen Bailey, and Zachary Kaplan, who were working from the outset, hand in hand, with the greatest police department in the world. The chief of our trial division, Lisa Del Pizzo, and the deputy chief, Chris Prevost, provided sage oversight and direction. And I want to acknowledge our high technology analysis unit. There was a lot to be processed here. Steve Moran, in particular, who heads that, and Marco Popic. We are privileged here at the DA's office to work every day with the phenomenal public servants at the NYPD. It has been a distinct pleasure to work besides Commissioner Tisch, an exemplary partner, and Chief of Detectives Joseph Kinney. Almost every day we're in touch, and his leadership is second to none. And then Deputy Commissioner Rebecca Weiner, who, as I tell her, there are a lot of challenging things happening in the world, and I sleep better at night knowing that she is the Deputy Commissioner in charge of terrorism. The detectives on this, out doing the courageous frontline work, Detective Oscar Diaz, Detective Curcio, exemplary, the finest. It wasn't just those of us here in New York. I want to acknowledge the great work of our partners in Altoona, the Altoona Police Department, the Blair County District Attorney's Office, the governors of New York and Pennsylvania, the FBI, and of course, the brave members of the public who answered the call when our great commissioner put out the call for their assistance. This was a frightening, well-planned, targeted murder that was intended to cause shock and attention and intimidation. It occurred in one of the most bustling parts of our city, threatening the safety of local residents and tourists alike, commuters and business people just starting out on their day. Let me say a bit more about the charges. They include 1 count of murder in the first degree as a killing in furtherance of terrorism, 2 counts of murder in the second degree, 1 charging that the killing was done as an act of terrorism, and the second pertaining to the fact that the killing was intentional. The maximum penalty possible for murder in the first degree and murder in the second degree is an act of terrorism is life without parole. The maximum penalty for murder in the second degree is 25 years to life. There are additional counts as well. A number of criminal possession of weapon charges, 2 counts in the second degree, 4 counts in the third degree, 1 count in the fourth degree, and a count of criminal possession of a forged instrument in the second degree. Let me tell you a bit about the facts. On November 24th, we allege that the defendant arrived in New York City to murder Brian Thompson. After the defendant arrived in New York City on a bus at Port Authority, he checked into the hostel on the Upper West Side using the name Mark Rosario with a fake New Jersey ID. On the morning of December 4th, the defendant left the hostel, just after 5:30 a.m. and traveled to Midtown. For nearly an hour, we allege the defendant waited in the area near the Hilton Hotel, waiting for Mr. Thompson to appear. From 6:38 a.m. to 6:44 a.m., the defendant stood across from the entrance of the hotel on West 54th Street. When he saw Mr. Thompson, he crossed the street and approached him from behind. We allege he then took out a 9mm 3D printed ghost gun, equipped with a 3D printed suppressor, and shot him once in the back and once in the leg. The defendant then fled northeast on 54th Street and took an e-bike uptown before getting into a taxi that took him to West 178th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. On December 9th, the defendant was spotted at McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. The local police were notified, he was arrested, and he was found with a 9mm handgun, a suppressor, 2 ammunition magazines, and the same fake New Jersey ID he used at the hostel. I want to say a word about ghost guns. These weapons are increasingly proliferating throughout New York City and the entire country. Involving technology will only make this problem worse. Last year, over 80 ghost guns and ghost gun parts were recovered in Manhattan alone. The NYPD and the Manhattan DA's office have been leading in the interdiction of these ghost guns. And one thing I want to make clear, they're unserialized, they can be printed out, but as this case tragically makes clear, they are just as deadly as traditional firearms. This will remain a priority for us here in Manhattan. Finally, I know there have been questions about the extradition process. The latest that I can offer you is that the defendant is currently scheduled to appear in court in Pennsylvania on Thursday morning, first for a preliminary hearing on his Pennsylvania charges. Immediately to follow that will be an extradition hearing. We have indications that the defendant may waive that hearing, in which case he'd be brought to New York forthwith. In any event, we have been preparing on parallel paths, and before the hearing, we'll send to the governor of the state of New York the paperwork that would be necessary if he does not waive during that hearing. I now want to turn over to our great commissioner, and when I do so, I wanted to thank her for her partnership, not only on this matter, but on all we do every day together. Thank you.
There we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. The unsealing of today's indictment brings us one step closer to securing justice for Brian Thompson and his family and affirming the primacy of the rule of law in the city of New York. NYPD detectives worked tirelessly to piece this case together. And along the way, the Manhattan DA's office made sure we had every legal tool available to us. Whether quickly providing subpoenas to assist with our evidence collection, or traveling with us to Altoona, Pennsylvania last week after the apprehension, our partnership made this a successful investigation. So I'd like to thank District Attorney Bragg and his team for their work in bringing this case forward. Part of that work included the relentless collection and analysis of surveillance video by our detectives, which ultimately produced a clear image of our suspect. That image was shared far and wide through the media, and thanks to an observant McDonald's customer and the employee who alerted the police, Mr. Mangione was quickly brought into custody. This outcome is why we always emphasize the critical role of the public in our public safety mission. So again, I want to thank everyone who saw something, said something, and did something. That is why we have a suspect in custody today. As DA Bragg said, Luigi Mangione is now formally charged and indicted for murder. And let me be perfectly clear. In the nearly 2 weeks since Mr. Thompson's killing, we have seen a shocking and appalling celebration of cold-blooded murder. Social media has erupted with praise for this cowardly attack. People ghoulishly plastered posters threatening the other CEOs, with an X over Mr. Thompson's picture, as though he was some sort of a sick trophy. And yesterday, the New York Post reported that some extreme activists were circulating a deck of cards with other most wanted CEOs to be targeted for assassination. These are the threats of a lawless, violent mob who would trade in their own vigilantism for the rule of law that protects us all. Let me say this plainly. There is no heroism in what Mangione did. This was a senseless act of violence. It was a cold and calculated crime that stole a life and put New Yorkers at risk. We don't celebrate murders, and we don't lionize the killing of anyone. And any attempt to rationalize this is vile, reckless, and offensive to our deeply held principles of justice.
There we go.
Now, as we await the extradition process in Pennsylvania to complete, we continue our public safety work here at home.
Luigi Mangione now charged with first-degree murder in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. A New York grand jury indicting him on what is a rare and serious charge in the state of New York. This specific way that they're using first degree is typically reserved for cases involving the killing of police officers or first responders and for serial killers. And it comes as a prison official tells our Jason Carroll that Mangione has met with his New York defense attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, visiting Mangione on Friday in the Pennsylvania prison where he's being held. We're also learning that his family still has not visited him. In fact, Mangione has not had any visitors except for his attorneys. Danny Freeman is out front, outside the prison in Huntington, Pennsylvania. And Danny, you're learning new information about what Mangione's life, what these days have been behind prison walls as he now faces these major new charges tonight.
Yeah, that's right, Aaron. We have updated information about Luigi Mangione's interactions with the outside world since he's been in prison, or better said, the outside world's attempt to interact with him since he's been behind bars behind me. As of today, per a spokesperson for the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, we've learned that Mangione has received 157 entries or deposits into his prison commissary account. We also learned that as of this morning, he's received 33 emails and 6 pieces of mail. Aaron, that's up from the just 2 pieces of hard mail that we reported he received as of last night. And still, like you noted...
Damn, the boy Mangione, he got fans, man. He got fans. I ain't gonna cap. He has fans, loyal fans, and they're rooting for him. I don't know, man. I can never condone what he did, but he has fans. He has fans.
Aaron, the only visitors, though, he's had behind these bars has been his attorneys so far. And this again comes all after those blockbuster new charges were announced in New York earlier this afternoon. As you noted, the Manhattan DA officially announcing that new indictment on first-degree murder charges in New York, and also by a grand jury indicted for murder of the second degree as a crime of terrorism. DA Alvin Bragg saying clearly this was a killing intended to invoke terror. Now, on Thursday morning, Aaron, that's when we're going to see the next step of these proceedings involving Mangione. It's going to be here in Pennsylvania. He's scheduled to have 2 hearings back-to-back, one on those Pennsylvania charges, then the other one right after on extradition. According to CNN's Kara Scannell, we do now expect him to waive that extradition and to go voluntarily to New York. That's according to his attorney. And if that's the case, a prison spokesperson, Aaron, tells us that he could leave Pennsylvania.
Speed. Shout out to Speed. Speed says, and these drones are sniffing for gamma rays, looking for nuclear warheads. So you're saying that this is what the drones are looking for? Because if the government comes out and say, you know what, we're looking for gamma rays, maybe potential nuclear warhead, everybody's gonna go crazy. So that kind of news, you can't even put it on mainstream media. It's like, what? Everybody's gonna be trying to travel out of the United States.
Pennsylvania, right from that courthouse after that proceeding, if that is in fact what ultimately happens. So this story, at least the Pennsylvania portion of this story, not quite done yet. But again, we're learning more about his life here before he likely ultimately heads back to New York. Aaron?
Absolutely. All right, Danny, thank you very much. And all of that, significant detail there from Danny's reporting. Joey Jackson joins me now, criminal defense attorney. So, Joey, okay, I want to get your reaction to some of the details that Danny had there. First, though, when he's talking about the charges, first-degree murder, to some, just, you look at this and you go, a guy comes and assassinates someone on the street on video in the streets of New York. That's first degree. But it actually, in New York State, things are different. It was second degree.
Yes.
They get to first degree because they say that this was intended to terrorize.
Yes.
And so, do you think this is a very, very high bar, right? I guess it means he can never life without parole, no way around it. Is the DA going to get a conviction on that?
So this is what they're doing. What DAs generally do is they charge, number one, the conduct that's relevant to the offense. And number two, they charge what they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. It's an open question as to a conviction. And I say that even notwithstanding the compelling evidence. This is a guy who's seen as a deity. They're calling him Saint Luigi, right? Do you get a jury who buys into the notion of the healthcare industry being so disruptive to the common person that this person deserved this, right? I'm speaking about the CEO who died. Yeah. So, could you get a jury to nullify? Could you get a jury that's hung? I mean, the evidence is really compelling. I doubt it. If you base it on the evidence and the facts alone, the question is no, at least to this point. He deserves the presumption of innocence. We're not at trial yet, but from the public disclosure of the evidence, I think it's pretty damning. But I think what the prosecutor is doing is saying we're going to look at motivation. Remember, Aaron, you never have to show motive of a crime. You just have to show that the crime was committed. In this instance, to the extent that you're charging terrorism, now you get to the motivation, the manifesto, the hatred of corporate America. All of that becomes admissible and relevant evidence.
All right. So what do you make of the what Danny's reporting? 33 emails, 6 actually hard mails. That's odd to think about what those would be. 157 deposits for the commissary. I guess that's people giving him money, basically, to buy food in the prison. When you look at all those things, does anything stand out to you?
It does. I mean, the fact of the matter is that he struck a raw chord. If you listen to people who are on social media speaking about him, there's a hatred of the healthcare industry. Yeah. And he picked a face of an industry. You're looking at United Healthcare, largest, they insure 1 in 7 people. And so who are you going to target but them? Yeah. And I think that's what functioned into the DA's charge of the first-degree murder for terrorism. Clearly, he had a message.
Quickly before we go, police were talking about his mother, and when they had talked to her about whether it was her son, they had a conversation where she didn't indicate that it was her son in the photograph. They'd reached out when the San Francisco Police Department said, hey, this looks like him, hadn't found him yet. They reached out to her because she'd filed the missing persons report. She didn't indicate it was him in the photograph, but she did say it might be something she could see him doing.
Well, that's troubling and problematic, and it raises the question morally, right? Whether she could have had any intervention to prevent this. Did she know that he was turning this dark, right? Indications are, though, Aaron, that he'd been out of touch with the family since July, and there had been a break with respect to the communication. But if you know something like that, maybe you get someone help and treatment or do something else other than allow them to engage in this behavior. But the people, I've never seen social media reaction that is so on a person's side who committed just a blatant murder.
Yeah. All right, Joey, thank you very much.
And Stacey, your take on the extradition, do these new charges, first-degree murder and terrorism, does that change any of this?
It really doesn't. What's going to happen when he appears in Pennsylvania, if he goes forward and waives or consents to extradition, I should say, then New York law enforcement will already likely be in the courtroom in Pennsylvania. He'll be processed out of the Pennsylvania system. He'll still have a hold from the pending charges in Pennsylvania, which will wait out indefinitely while New York addresses its case. And they'll transport him right back to New York and get him into an arraignment in front of the New York Supreme Court criminal, which is for felony indictments. The indictment is already handed up by the grand jury. They'll present him with that indictment and his attorney, and undoubtedly he'll enter a not guilty plea. But there's something I really want to point out here, which is highly unusual, and it's my opinion that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has a bit overreached in this indictment. They were originally going to go forward with a murder 2 charge against Luigi Mangione, which is just having the defendant having the intent to cause death of another human being and the defendant being the cause of that death. They've now gone forward and enlisted this terrorism component to a murder 1 indictment, which means they presented evidence in front of the grand jury, which is a group of 24 people from the community, without a judge in place, just a district attorney and a group of 24 grand jurors who hear evidence. It is undoubted, or I believe that the DA presented that alleged manifesto to try to get this terrorism charge added on as murder 1, but they're going to have a harder time proving that in court for one reason, and I'll make it fast. This victim was shot in the back of the head, not in the front of the head, on a quiet sidewalk early in the morning in the dark, and it doesn't appear from a defense attorney's perspective that this was intended to be a terroristic type of murder.
So one other thing I want to ask is just I want you to take a listen from moments ago, the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Let's roll that tape.
1 count of murder in the first degree as a killing in furtherance of terrorism. 2 counts of murder in the second degree. 1 charging that the killing was done as an act of terrorism, and the second pertaining to the fact that the killing was intentional.
So, Stacey, you think a defense attorney would disagree with that and with what Shimon laid out, that the prosecution will explain is that because he was targeted, Mr. Thompson, for being a CEO of a health insurance company, and this does appear to be politically motivated in a sense, but you disagree with those charges, or you think a defense attorney would take issue?
I think his defense attorney is going to definitely take issue at trial. They may even move to dismiss the top count of murder 1, and that would be Karen Agnifilio, because arguing this was a terroristic act when he was on a quiet street in the dark shooting a victim in the back of the head and then intending to influence the whole world about the insurance industry was an unintended consequence of this murder. No one expected the social media outpouring, the disturbing social media outpouring from this act, and to have the district attorney and law enforcement from New York mention that there was a social media outcry in relation to a terroristic act is putting the cart before the horse. I mean, the murder happened first, the outcry was second, and totally unpredictable. So I think this might be a case of overreaching on a murder 1. I could see why they have enough evidence, or they believe, law enforcement, that they have enough evidence for murder 2. But this is going to be a very interesting turn.
John Miller, I want to play for you. Listen to the NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch just moments ago.
The New York Post reported that some extreme activists were circulating a deck of cards with other most wanted CEOs to be targeted for assassination. These are the threats of a lawless, violent mob who would trade in their own vigilantism for the rule of law.
John Miller, what are you hearing from your NYPD sources about this? Are they going after the people who made these cards? Do they think these are serious threats?
Well, they do think that they are serious threats, and we're dealing across a number of domains here. One is the psychological effect and after effect that we see in this. Compare something like this, which is a relatively unique murder of the CEO of an industry because he was the CEO of the biggest company in that industry, in this case, healthcare. In school shootings, we see what they call the contagion effect, which is one of these things happens, it gets a great deal of attention, and the next person who was already thinking of something like that then may accelerate their plans. The idea that this has become a social media phenom, the idea that somebody has printed cards, the idea that just outside a high-level meeting of CEOs of a number of companies at a hotel last week, wanted posters of CEOs were posted on lampposts and scaffolding around the block, showing their faces with their salaries underneath. Brian Thompson's was among them with an X across his face. The posters said, Brian Thompson's claim was denied, his claim to live. Whose claim will be denied next? This is the propaganda of terrorism, and this is in part why the Manhattan District Attorney charges the case this way. Now we know what they know, which is he had allegedly a manifesto on his person referring to these parasites in the plural, not the singular. What we don't know was, did Luigi Mangione have plans to kill more? But what Commissioner Tisch is trying to do here is sound a clarion call, an alarm, saying the NYPD and law enforcement in general will not tolerate this going from propaganda to action, and that they will track down who's ever responsible in any case.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? 2025 is about to be spicy. That's something I can say for a fact. 2020 is going to be spicy. What do you guys think? I mean, with all this going on, this is going to be a spicy year moving forward. Man. I mean, did you guys hear about the school shooting in Wisconsin? The lady also wrote, the 15-year-old girl also wrote a manifesto about how men should be, extinct. It's like, what is going on? Anyway, Elon Musk facing issues.
Tonight, the New York Times is reporting that federal agencies have opened at least 3 reviews of Elon Musk and SpaceX, looking into alleged repeated failures to comply with government protocols that protect highly sensitive U.S. state secrets. The Defense Department's continuous vetting mandate for security clearances is pretty clear. Musk and SpaceX are to report itineraries and meeting notes during their foreign travel. Instead, the Times reports tonight that Musk and SpaceX have repeatedly left out details or even the mere existence of meetings that he has had abroad. Musk is also required to report the use of even prescription drugs, and the government bans the use of federally prohibited ones like marijuana, which is why you cannot smoke if you have a security clearance. It made us recall a moment that happened in 2018 with Joe Rogan when Musk says the use of federally...
Oh, man. They're coming after Musk. You can't do nothing. I mean, come on, man. This man is supposed to save the astronauts from space. They're coming after Elon Musk. Okay, good luck.
Prescription drugs, and the government bans the use of federally prohibited ones like marijuana, which is why you cannot smoke if you have a security clearance. It made us recall a moment that happened in 2018 with Joe Rogan when Musk's security clearance was still under review for an unusual length of time.
There's tobacco and marijuana in there. That's all it is.
The New York Times says that Musk reportedly surprised defense officials when he posted in 2023 online announcing his occasional use of ketamine. This new report raises questions and some concerns about Musk's interactions with world leaders at a time where he has very deep influence in the president-elect's inner circle. He responded to the Times piece, writing, quote, "Deep state traitors are coming after me using their paid shills and legacy media. I prefer not to start fights, but I do end them." My source tonight was Trump's longest-serving national security advisor during his first term. Ambassador John Bolton is here. And Ambassador, it's great to have you, because when you look at these reviews and what is alleged, a failure to disclose these details, how serious is that?
Well, first, let's start with a proposition. This is a news story, and it's not wholly writ, so further evidence may be forthcoming. But Musk's response to it, I think, is really irresponsible. The defense contractors take this continuous vetting process very seriously. Their contracts can depend on it. And given the amount of contracts that Musk has with the federal government, it's very important that he and his company comply with these obligations, just like everybody else. This may sound very intrusive, but you know, when you contract with the federal government, especially the Defense Department, they have what they call an open kimono policy, which is they know everything about you. If you don't want to contract with the government, don't contract with the government. But that's what they worry about, so that critical national security information doesn't get to our adversaries. And I think the real concern here is China and some of the things that Musk has said about China, his quite large investment in Tesla in China, and I think that's probably what's at the bottom of many of these Defense Department concerns.
Yeah, and he is a major contractor, but in this process of continuous vetting, where you're letting the government know, here's where I'm going, here's who I'm meeting with, for that purpose of you know, as they are continuing to check and see if someone should have this contract. You know, with security clearances, I thought about something else that the Times reported, which was they said the Air Force recently denied him high-level security access. They said there were potential security risk, and that several allies like Israel had expressed concerns Elon Musk could share sensitive data with others. I should know a federal agency has not accused him of disclosing classified material, but you know as well as I do that, you know, Trump previously overruled.
Oh, God, these folks right here, man. So he hasn't disclosed any information. Y'all just going after him for in case we're going to go after him. He is Doge. Him and Vivek Ramaswamy, they are Department of Government Efficiency. So you guys want to regulate the Department of Government Efficiency. Oh, I see.
Intelligence concerns to give people security clearances like Jared Kushner.
Yeah. Well, we'll see whether there's one rule of law in the country once Trump becomes president. This leak potentially of classified information to China is serious. I mean, if you go back to Loral Space Communications, for example, which made satellites.
This guy just said we would see whether there's one rule of law when Trump gets into power. Biden just pardoned Hunter. The president of the United States just pardoned his son, and is still pardoning a lot of people. And you're here saying we would see if there's one rule of law. You know there ain't no goddamn rule of law. You know that. Yeah, you know that. Yeah.
At the end of the 1990s, the end of the Clinton administration, was accused of helping the Chinese launch their missiles more effectively so they didn't blow up and destroy their satellites. And they ended up paying a $20 million fine, I think it was, to the Defense Department. That was 25 years ago almost. And China has considerable leverage over Musk, given the level of Tesla investment in China. And he said some pretty strange things, at least a lot of people would consider them strange. Musk said that Taiwan should be a special administrative region of China. Not very popular on Taiwan, not American policy either. So, look, he has to comply with these regulations. They are burdensome. There's no doubt about it. His company has to comply. Other defense contractors comply. As I say, if you think they're too burdensome, don't contract with the federal government. But if you do what everybody else does and follow the regulations.
Given those ties to China and the comments that you just referenced, how do you think Marco Rubio, Senator Marco Rubio, who's up for Secretary of State, or Mike Waltz, who's going to potentially, or is going to have your old job, how do you think that they're approaching something like that? Because Elon Musk has a lot of influence with Trump right now. I talk to people who say they're always together. He's always around at Mar-a-Lago. He sits in on job interviews. He's got a heavy influence on Trump at the moment.
Yeah, well, he has a propensity to post on X the way Trump posts on used to post on Twitter, including sensitive information. I remember one tweet that Trump put out was a picture of a Iranian ballistic missile that had blown up on the launch pad that was given to him just a few hours before he posted it, and it was told specifically not to do it. So being careless with national security information is a problem Trump has, as we know from the famous Mar-a-Lago documents case. So I think it'll be a legitimate question for all the people who require Senate confirmation. How much do they care about security precautions in the federal government? And a lot will change after noon on the 20th of January. Right now, Trump is still a private citizen. But after he becomes president, talking to people like Musk, the whole DOGE operation probably will become subject to the Federal Advisory Committee Act, not the most famous statute in the world, that could have a big impact on its activities. So I think this is a legitimate subject of concern. And as I say, this is a news article, and even in the New York Times, it's not always 100% correct. But one thing I noted that was very interesting was they cite complaints by SpaceX employees themselves saying that they've not been able to report what they should be reporting to the government. That's pretty serious.
Yeah, and they say they're more worried about it now because of the influence he has on Trump and the proximity to him. We'll see how those reviews go. Ambassador John Bolton, as always, thank you for your time.
More cap on cap. Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Somebody was asking me what I think about the Middle East. Look, I advocate for peace. I don't care about wars because, I mean, why would I care about wars? Okay, peace, peace, peace. That's all we care about. All right. Well, CNN always has something to say. What do you guys want to know about? Let me know in the chat. I just wanted to come here real fast, talk to you guys before I retire for the day. I've been working back to back, but you got to do what you got to do. Okay, so Tom Homan. Yeah, Tom Homan ain't playing around. Yeah, you better know. Tom Homan ain't playing around. Do you think Syria will find peaceful?
Homan is planning to meet with mayors across the United States. This comes after he met with New York City Mayor Eric Adams last week. Adams now saying that he would support the deportation of migrant criminals. Tom Homan joins us now. Tom, I don't know who else is on your list, but you might want to get in touch with Mike Kaufman from Aurora, Colorado, because he seems to have a trendy Aragba problem on his hands, regardless of what he said earlier this year.
Of course he does, but you know he's the one that says he doesn't have a problem, along with the governor. But what you know, I just saw your piece on the chief of police standing up and talking about this issue. What's lacking is an ICE person standing next to him, shoulder to shoulder. So he's talking the talk, but let's hope he walks the walk and hand these people to ICE when he's done with them, because we can remove them not only from the community but from the country. And if law enforcement officers don't help us do that, we're certainly going to do that starting January 21st.
Right. Well, you know, I don't know if they're acknowledging that they've got a problem at this point, but the police chief would seem to suggest that they do. I wanted to ask you about your meeting with Eric Adams last week. Here's what he said after he spent some time with you.
We're not going to be a safe haven for those who commit repeated violent crimes against innocent migrants, immigrants, and longstanding New Yorkers. That was my conversation today with the border czar to figure out how do we go after those individuals who are repeatedly committing crimes in our city.
Wow. Talk about making a 180. What brought him to where he is now?
Look, when I sat down, look, I've been calling him out for 2 years. I've been saying he forgot what it's like being a cop and became a politician. But when I sat down at that table, John, the cop came out of him. He understood. I'm not asking them to be immigration officers. I'm asking them for his law enforcement officers, work with my law enforcement officers to remove public safety threats from his community. He gets it. Unlike a lot of mayors and governors across this country who's pushing back and saying they're going to impede what we're doing, I think every elected mayor, every elected governor should want public safety threats removed from their communities. I mean, we've been clear, President Trump and I have said out of the gate, Public safety threats are our priority. Help us get this job done. Everybody should be, this shouldn't be a partisan issue. Everybody should be on the same page with this. We're talking about criminals, public safety threats. And look, Mayor Adams talked about the Laken Riley. If we had a better relationship with NYPD back then, when that guy was first arrested in New York for injury to a child, he would have never made it to Georgia, and she'd be alive today. So I'm hoping that this conversation, which went very well, hope the actions follow it up. I'm looking forward to working with Mayor Adams and making New York City safe again.
All right, you've got headed treaties from some other mayors as well. They're looking for a meeting?
I got a couple we're working on, but I'm not going to give them credit on national TV till they actually set a date to me. But like I said, I'm willing to sit down with the mayor of Chicago, who's saying he's going to do everything he can to prevent me from being successful. I'll meet with anybody because this is about public safety and national security. So let's meet, let's work together. You don't have to be immigration officers. We'll do that. But be cops, be law enforcement, be elected representatives for your community. Love your community a little more than you hate Trump.
Well, tell you, you're a carrot and stick guy. Last week you were threatening to throw Brandon Johnson in jail if he crossed you. Now you're saying you want to sit down with him. I want to ask you about the border wall issue. Trump was saying yesterday at Mar-a-Lago to Joe Biden, don't sell the border wall. Listen here.
So I'm asking today Joe Biden to please stop selling the wall. We're going to use that to...
Oh, man. Yo, he says, stop selling the border wall. I mean, can you imagine President-elect talking to the president saying, yo, please don't sell the border wall. Don't do it. Yeah, that's just, man, that ain't right.
Create a strong barrier, and it worked. That's why our numbers were so good. It really worked, and it worked well. And it's very expensive to do, and I'm asking Joe Biden to stop his people from giving it away.
So our William Lajeunesse sent me a note earlier today saying that the Department of Defense says the wall is no longer in their possession. They sold it to an auction house. We're losing 96 to 98% per foot based on production costs. So is the wall gone?
Look, I'm talking to Lindsey Graham about this. Yeah, some of the wall's already gone. It's a shame that the taxpayers paid top dollar for this wall, and now they're selling it for pennies on the dollar. And we're going to have to buy it back? Taxpayers got to pay twice for the same material? It's ridiculous. I think there needs to be a full investigation who was involved with this decision. This isn't their wall. It's America's wall. The taxpayers paid for it. They have no business making taxpayers double down on that. And getting back to Brandon, the mayor of let's be clear. I want to sit down so I don't have to lock anybody up. Bottom line is, if they cross that line, John, if they cross that line in Peters, if they cross that line in knowingly harboring concealed illegal alien, well, I'm going to seek prosecution, but I'm hoping to prevent it. I'm hoping we can all work together to take as many public safety threats off the street as possible. I can do more with their help, but if they don't want to help, I'm coming to do it anyways. You're not stopping me.
Well, judging by what we've seen at some of the public meetings in Chicago lately, you got some backing on that front. Tom, always good to spend time with you. Thank you, sir.
Hey. Yeah, he ain't playing around. Tom Homan ain't playing. Tom Homan ain't playing around, people. I'm telling y'all, Tom Homan is not playing around.
Colorado, as police investigate what they call an evil and vicious kidnapping at an apartment complex. Yes, that apartment complex that has been terrorized by members of the violent Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. Police are not confirming if the suspects are part of that gang, but they say they are believed to be undocumented Venezuelans accused of tying up and beating two people last night, stabbing one of them and robbing the home. Senior correspondent Alicia Acuna has the whole story for us as she reports live from Denver. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Martha. The Aurora police chief says that the two victims, who are a man and a woman, are also Venezuelan migrants. And he says they were brave to call 911. The details of this crime are just horrific. Police detained up to 15 suspects believed to be Venezuelan migrants as well, who they say broke into an apartment, took the victims to another unit where they were bound, pistol whipped, and the male was stabbed. They were terrorized for more than 4 hours before the victims promised not to call police if released, and they were. And the victims did call authorities. Today, the police chief had strong words for the White House.
I had a discussion with an individual from the White House, and that occurred back on September the 23rd, I believe. And that person basically told me that, hey, once these immigrants get across the border, That's all we really care about. And to me, that's a problem. And so Aurora, we are now in the process, as many other cities throughout this nation, of trying to pick up the pieces of an incredibly bad system that was in place.
This is the same complex, as you mentioned, Martha, where that Ring camera captured armed TDA members. The chief says there's no question last night's attack was committed by gang members, but can't yet confirm that these are TDA. Today, the Aurora City Councilwoman who sounded the alarm on this issue had this to say.
Tired of this situation being downplayed. I am tired of this being portrayed as just another gang in Aurora. This is actual human suffering of the most vulnerable community, the ones who would otherwise be afraid to call 911.
And Martha, those two victims are still in the hospital. Martha.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page.
Thank you. Rende Aragua. Man. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into the live stream. This was going to be a quick stream. I just wanted to talk to you guys and go retire for the day. Godfather, thank you for tuning in. Who else? Okay. Let's see what Kamala Harris is saying. Fighting for the future.
Kamala Harris is back to give more pep talks to her Democratic Party. She let down after losing in a landslide. Not one battleground state did she prevail. The Veep addressing young leaders and trying to console them by talking about all the fan mail that she's getting. Watch.
These letters share a common theme.
There we go.
Yes, there is disappointment, but there is also resolve for the future. We must stay in the fight. I ask of you this.
Don't ask for nothing.
Those here and anyone watching, that you will not walk away. And I ask you to remember the context in which you exist. Yeah, I did that.
Judge. What? We're doing the show. So I'm just wondering when you. I'm going to continue. And speaking of dysfunction of the Democratic Party, it looks like. Please pay attention. There's no love lost between the Obama Pod Save America host and President Biden.
Trump isn't president yet. A fact that's getting easier and easier to forget as Joe Biden seems to be disappearing from the public stage as his term comes to an end.
I guess what I'm more concerned about is less like, am I seeing Joe Biden enough? Maybe he's right that people don't want to hear from him. It's more like, do I feel confident right now that Joe Biden behind the scenes is thinking of every single way he can try to future-proof the White House? And do I think Joe Biden himself is like at command thinking about this? Like right now, like I don't.
So, Harold, let's begin with you. And I'm just wondering, the people are really concerned about the interim period between when Kamala Harris lost and January 20th, when President Biden, Trump takes over, because he essentially is filling a gap right now. Is there legitimate reason to be concerned that Democrats are making things worse by leaving a huge void?
I don't think so. Look, I like those guys, the Pod Save America guys. They're all part of they all should be doing what Kamala Harris should be doing also, which is everybody step back for a moment. Stop talking. This is, we lost. We lost the House. We'd already lost the House. We thought we lost the Senate. We lost the presidency. Talking about the things that the vice president was talking about there, I didn't understand what she was talking about, frankly. But if you want to share with people that they shouldn't be down, encourage them to be more active in society. Encourage them to give the president the benefit of the doubt, the new president, and to try to work with him when they think he's wrong, to counter him. Politics has become part entertainment, part culture, part policy, and a dash of politics. President Trump mastered that this time. We should step back and take account of that. Now, these guys saying that President Biden they don't know where he is or what he's doing. He's been that way for 6 months and they weren't saying those things. So now that we are after the election, they want to say these things, and that's fine. But remember, you have a transition team. Waltz, the National Security Advisor, is working with Jake Sullivan. I have confidence there. The president is aware of everything. The new president's aware of everything that's going on because he's getting all those briefings. So my concern is not that. My concern is more so my party. We were on the other day, and this guy sitting in your seat one day was Charlie Hurt. And Charlie Hurt said in Greg's seat, and Charlie said, I want a strong Democratic Party too. When Democrats are in charge, I want a strong Republican Party. The country is better when both parties are competitive, when both parties are serious, and when both parties are taken seriously by the voters. And right now, Brian, Democrats aren't being taken seriously enough by the voters. And the comments made by the vice president there, whom I respect, is not helping. Step back, listen before you begin talking again about what
I agree, but then Senator Fetterman hasn't stepped back. He comments on everything, and I don't think it's hurting the party at all. And sometimes he says things he's always pro-Israel. And he's open to nominees.
He's talking about the things we did wrong. I'm saying she didn't say anything. I've not heard anything out of the vice president's mouth saying, here's what I did wrong. I didn't hear her campaign advisors. They got on and said the storm hurt us, this hurt us. They ran a bad campaign. Period.
Al Sharpton says, Dana, that Democrats must brag about Biden's accomplishments, not wallow in election trauma.
Okay, whatever. Well, I mean, it's just ringing hollow. And in fact, Sheila Nix is the chief of staff, I think, for Kamala Harris. Every year after a presidential election, Harvard does at the Institute of Politics, they interview all the campaign managers. And you get to read it, and it's a transcript. So Karl Rove read it last week, and Sheila Nix, who's the Kamala Harris spokesperson or chief of staff, she said, we ran a flawless campaign. They've had no introspection at all. In addition to that, you had stories in 2020 commenting about her management style were bad. Think about this. There were all these staffers that worked for the DNC and for her campaign that were told they are going to get paid through the holidays. But guess what? They found out that's not true. They got bounced a couple weeks ago because they had to pay for Oprah and Lady Gaga and others, and that certainly doesn't help a lot of people. She basically, if you had any ideas that she's going to run again and win, she just opened her mouth and erased all doubt. Like that, it's definitely not happening. Imagine you gave her money for her campaign, and you're thinking, she better not come calling and asking me for money again. The last thing I would say is John Haibush. He ran the Reagan Library for a long time, brilliant writer. He lives in California. He's frustrated. He said he has a piece today at his Substack about Kamala Harris for governor. And the last line is, if you're tired of bad governance from Gavin Newsom and yearning for chaotically terrible government, then yes, she's the woman for the job. What's the worst that could happen?
Wow. Jesse, they went on and did some analysis, and one of the staffers said that the best moment, the viral moment in the campaign, was her interview with Bret Baier. That they got more fundraising and more social media movement than any other interview.
So what? They raised more money and then they just gave it to Oprah and Al Sharpton. Yeah. Who cares how much money they raised? Trump beat Hillary and Kamala, and he got outraised 2-1 on both races. It's not about the money. They launder it anyway. They had a dumb strategy. All she did was speak to a few people in the mainstream media. The one time she crossed over and did Fox, she got annihilated. They were waving the white flag, remember, on the sideline? They were cut. So she didn't do Rogan because she would have been exposed. She didn't do any of these sports podcasts because no one wanted to
why
talk
didn't she do
politics,
Rogan?
and she doesn't know anything about sports.
Exactly.
It's not just a media problem. It was a candidate problem. Now, did you hear what she just said?
Yes.
She said, fight? Fight what? Fight who? Fight how?
Right.
Fight the nominees? Fight mass deportation? She has no idea what she's saying. And she can't say that when Fetterman's meeting with them. She can't say it when all of her donors are at Mar-a-Lago. Yep. The country is not in the mood to fight. The country wants to get it together.
Ooh.
Also a great book.
Available everywhere books are sold.
Yes, for
Judge?
Christmas. I agree, that politics is better when, and I get what you're trying to say, Harold, that, you got to have two parties and they have to have differences of opinion and they have to come to an agreement. But I think politics is better when politicians come together and fight for the American people. I don't need to have them at each other's throats to do that. I think that the problem with Kamala Harris is that the woman is so inept, she is so incompetent, she is so inarticulate, that she was a joke. She was. I mean, I don't know what she stood for. I don't know why anyone would even think that she's got a chance of winning any other seat, any other race. And that she looked down on the New York Times and the Washington Post because she assumed she had all those readers. So, I mean, imagine how they're feeling, the Post and the Times. And she's, no, those are Dem-based newspapers. I don't have to go to them. And yet, since there was no value to them, she didn't try to get new voters when she couldn't even perform with her own voters. She underperformed with blacks. She underperformed with the youth. And she had no interest in doing conservative media. She wasn't interested in I was reading about the monoculture that sports is. Nobody owns sports. That was a place for her to go in and to make some inroads. She didn't bother. And yet Trump was smart enough. A lot of this attributable to Barron. I mean, he understood the value of social media, how viral it goes when you capture something and then it continues to spread. And she just didn't get it. I mean, she had no message. She had nothing. And in the end, it's a slap in the face to the Democrat Party that she was even their candidate. She couldn't articulate how she was different than Joe. The woman she's just inept.
Do you remember, Judge, 2 months before that they were talking about no one would even say that she'd be the right running mate for Joe Biden, let alone replace Joe Biden. And if you had so much courage and are so mad at Joe Biden for dropping out so late, where were the people in 2022 after the midterms to go, Joe, good job, but you can't be president again? Obviously, if you had some courage and you were David Axelrod or anybody or James Carville, you had said, Joe Biden did good in the midterms because of abortion, but I think now let's make sure you're not running for re-election. You're too old because we know you're failing. But they waited for the June debate collapse to come take a stand.
All I meant about Democrats and Republicans, I just want a serious party. I don't even like them fighting at their neck. I just want Democrats aren't serious right now. And that's all I meant about them being serious.
Man, please. Nobody cares at this point.
I remember Michelle Obama saying if Trump won, women would suffer.
If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your reign.
That's a cap. No.
Trump's pretty much already president. So let's check in on Michelle.
Attention, everybody.
Oh, man. These politicians, bro. Bro, these politicians, they be capping. Oh, man. He's in a private jet flying around. Former first lady flying around talking about your mom, your daughter, we as women will be compromised. Look at her, please. Look at that. Look at that.
Michelle Obama's walking. We can't let her go. She's a classy lady. We just love her.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Look, you can never make this up, bro. You can never make this up, Brody.
Michelle Obama looks proud of her country again, which is weird because Biden's about to turn the White House over to Hitler. Everybody should be scared, right? At the Obama house, it's Christmas as usual. The only thing keeping Michelle up at night is what to stuff in Barack's stocking.
Who's the hardest to shop for?
He is. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, he's just a boy, you know? I mean, he just doesn't do.
Nah, man. Nah, we ain't gonna take that. Hell no. Hell no. Come on. Talking about Barack Obama is just a boy. Look at that.
He is. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, he's just a boy, you know?
Men, do not marry a lady that would talk about you outside like this. Matter of fact, don't be getting married, okay? If you're young and if you're not married. And if you are married, you better check your wife, okay? She can't be talking about you out like that. Talking about you're just a boy. God, this is the former president of the United States. He's just a boy. What?
I mean, he just doesn't do much. He golfs, and there's only so many golf balls you can get a dude.
Right.
I'm trying to like get him clothes that he wouldn't buy, you know?
Okay.
Because he's also cheap.
Well, who is the best gift giver?
Hey. What? What?
Out of you guys.
Probably me.
Okay.
You know, I think I am because I'm actually paying attention to everyone.
Ah,
you know?
that is the
I'm,
trick.
like listening.
Michelle just said her husband's cheap, doesn't listen, and chases balls all day like a little boy. We'd show you the part where Jennifer Hudson asked Michelle about what it's going to be like living.
This is what the Democrat wants for men. Little boys chasing balls, no spine. That's what they want.
Under a dictator and how women will survive the next 4 years, but she never asked. Michelle put down some ground rules for the interview.
Look at that.
After the biggest election in the history of the country, her words, not mine, Michelle said, "Don't ask me about politics." Michelle's only allowed to be asked about her new book, her new Netflix show, and her new fruit juice brand. Not very maha. Michelle's got to push product. It's the new golden age, remember? It's almost like she's saying life goes on. The whole democracy is on the line was just a line.
That's total BS. Nobody
Kamala
cares.
Harris, same thing. She lost to a tyrant, and she's still laughing.
Good morning. Oh. Remember the context in which you exist.
Huh?
Yeah, I did that. Uh-huh. In the face of an obstacle, do we throw up our hands
Yeah.
or do we roll up our sleeves?
No, you don't do that.
And as we approach,
She doesn't seem very worried that Trump's not in prison and he's about to take over the military. Kamala just robbed donors to pay Oprah and Sharpton, then flew to Hawaii for a week with Doug. I guess that's normal. Bill Maher is also not losing any sleep over Trump.
Of course, the worst things could happen. Trump could get into office and blow up the world on day one. But, you know, I'm not going through the same spilkus I did last time. Like,
Really?
Yeah. Like,
I did
when,
not
when,
fo-
when it happens, wake me. But I'm not giving my mind over to it again. And I'll see what happens. And one thing I've learned about the future is that we're very bad about predicting it. And whatever you think is probably likely to happen probably isn't going to happen.
Wait a second. The media said Trump was going to order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate journalists. And now the media is like, I'm going to sleep. Wake me up when they're outside the door. The journalists who thought they'd be dead in January were calling Trump for an interview.
The day after Donald Trump had that crazy rally at Madison Square Garden,
Oh, wow, yeah.
I
Garbage.
rolled the dice and I called him on the phone.
Yeah.
And he answered. I called him and said, I want an interview with you. Obviously, he said no. But my point is,
Yeah.
I was able to get to him by dialing his phone.
Right.
Now, that might be completely and you're like, I can't believe people know this guy's phone number.
And remember when all these economists said Trump was going to light up inflation and send us into a recession? Well, this just in from the Wall Street Journal. CEOs on Wall Street say they're more optimistic than they've been in years. What's going on? Well, the media keeps writing these stories about the resistance. What resistance? I haven't seen it. Where? Democrat donors are dining at Mar-a-Lago. Fetterman's meeting with Hegseth. We haven't seen a single protest anywhere. The only thing they're resisting is Doge because they want to keep working from home. The legacy
Doge.
media's audience is disappearing. MSNBC and CNN are getting spun off like dead weight by their parent companies. So these hosts are starting to tell the truth because lying just got bad for business. George Stephanopoulos just cost ABC $15 million because he defamed Trump. And the Post reports he's humiliated. First, Disney lost to DeSantis, and now they're funding Trump's presidential library. And Stephanopoulos is apoplectic. Chuck Todd's having nightmares about it, and he doesn't even work in the media anymore, I think.
This was stunning to me and absolutely a gut punch to anybody that works at a major media company, because I think it does sets a precedent that is going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to get out from under potentially. I just, I think the risk of losing this suit was 5%.
Right.
Like 50%.
For ABC.
For ABC. So, this was a decision to buy off a bad PR.
Well, today, Trump sued that Iowa pollster, Selzer, who accused brazen election interference and consumer fraud for releasing a suppression poll on the eve of the election that had him down 3 to Kamala when he won by 13. Everybody in the discredited press is now trying to save their careers. They're all running the podcast saying, I knew we were going to lose.
If Democrats are the party about caring more and doing more and caring about everybody, they also need to have some hard conversations that when you care more and you treat people better, it might make the world cost more. And they're afraid to say that. And you have to just start saying those, right? Like, the world's gonna cost more. Guess what? When you guys leave here and you go to a bar, you're gonna spend at least 10 minutes at that bar bitching to one another about how much the drinks cost. And so when we wonder, and I'm not saying you shouldn't bitch about it, but we should just get real about how things are.
Well, we just watched Stephanie's interview with Kamala right before the election. She folded. She didn't press her on high prices. She didn't say any of this. And if Kamala won, Stephanie wouldn't be saying this now either. She's trying to act independent so she lands on her feet when her network gets sold. The ladies of The View are doing the walk of shame. Watch.
The Democratic Party has always been the party of the working class, has always been. If you look at all the policies, they're for the people. And I think even myself, as someone who grew up in abject poverty, I think I missed the boat in terms of realizing that there are so many Americans that still have that experience that I grew up with.
Sunny Hostin says she grew up in abject poverty and she fought all the way up to The View, where she gets paid millions of dollars to sit around and talk. Kind of like me. And for the last 4 years, she didn't notice the working class was struggling. She didn't see the prices going up. She didn't see the migrants coming in, the crime. I don't believe that. It was all over. She saw it, and she was comfortable where she was. She didn't care about the people she left behind. And she hated Trump so much and wanted to get along with Whoopi and Joy so badly, she forgot where she came from. And that's great that she's now come around, but I don't know if I believe her. I don't know if she's just saying that to save her skin when the executives shake up The View. Bill Clinton says Democrats have been on cruise control and just forgot about the people they work for. Listen.
Well, I think we got used to winning elections and we forgot that every one of them had to be hard fought and that it wasn't just some sort of automatic thing. Once disabling behavior is no longer such a problem because people are more worried about the world they knew crumbling around them without some certainty of where they're going to be in the new world.
The Democrats thought they could buy this election, call Trump names, and their base would turn out. But they hurt their people. They took them for granted and never saw the landslide coming because they didn't listen to anything if they didn't like what they were hearing.
With either side. But what I don't like about the Democratic Party at this particular moment in time, you keep walking around on your moral high horse, acting like you're above reproach. But I'm sick of all of this. I really am. Democrats, you lost. You got your butts whipped. Own it, live with it, accept it, embrace it, and look in the damn mirror. And stop acting like the problem lies with others. It lies with you.
Okay.
Your messengers were weak. Your message was weaker. And I know that because the American people said so in droves. Own it. And get off your moral high horse.
It wasn't just the message. It was the action. We still haven't heard from Democrats. Maybe we shouldn't have opened the border. Maybe we shouldn't have spent $28 trillion in 4 years. Maybe we shouldn't have put criminals, cross-dressers, and vagrants on a pedestal. Unless you hear that from Democrats, they haven't owned what they did. Actions speak louder than words.
Facts. Action speaks louder than words. You've heard from Jesse Waters. Shout out to Jesse. Man, it's about to be spicy for the Democrat Party in 2025 and the United States as a whole, because it's going to be spicy. I'm not even going to cap. It is going to be a spicy year, 2025. And, we might be seeing things we never thought we would see in 2025. So get ready for what's coming in 2025. I don't know what's coming, but I know for a fact, some SHIT might be coming in 2025. Sort of like summer 2020. Remember summer 2020? Yeah. Remember summer 2020? So you better get ready. Anyway, thank you for tuning into the live show. Double tap your screen. It is that time of the day where I say good night. Double tap your screen. Thank you for tuning into the live show one more time. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, and believe in God. It is your boy, Genesis. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to be back here in the morning, hopefully in the morning or noon, and we're going to do this over again. So God bless you guys. Have a wonderful night. And if you are at work, have a wonderful day at work. We do what we got to do to support our family. And I know life is hard. Never give up on yourself, okay? Keep going. God bless you.